What is up? What's up, boxing world? What's up, boxing family? Had to jump in for this main event tonight on Amazon Prime. PBC's first ever Amazon Prime regular main event, not a pay-per-view fight. And we got Tszyu against undefeated Bakhram Murtazaliev for the IBF Super welterweight title. Good scrap. Man, happy Saturday to everybody. Your boys got to take off in the morning to go head to Los Angeles to cover the Raiders and the Rams, but I definitely wanted to check this fight out with you guys first. Probably should have got on for the whole card, but hey, we made it in time for the main event. So, what is going on, chat? Just in time for the good part. And what's going on, Rude Dog, Gustavo Fontalba? Did I see Tellez? Definitely did see Yoenis Tellez. What's up, Real? Recognize Real? What's going on, brother? Definitely did see Tellez, and looks like he's rounding into form, like he's becoming a player at 154, only about 10 fights into his career. Talented Cuban fighter who got over here to the States earlier than most of the Cubans of yesteryear were able to get there. So you see guys like him and David Morrell kind of sitting down on their punches and shaking off some of the amateur habits from the Olympics quickly into their 20s, because harder to teach an old dog new tricks. So when Casamayor, Rigondeaux would come overseas, they were already so ingrained 300 fights into the amateur style that it's a little harder. Old habits die hard. But here comes Tszyu coming to the ring, and it is a small, intimate show PBC's having. There was rumors that these tickets were going on sale for $1 each. About 1,000 or so people there. But you know what? At least this is a, actual American show funded by, but not even really. It's No Limit in association with PBC. No Limit's the one probably really paying for these, but this is the state of American boxing right now, and that's okay. Let's be realistic with where we're at. A fight like Tszyu and Murtazaliev is about 1,000 seat capacity type fight, and hey, at least we don't have to sit through 2 or 3, a 1 hour. Best of 1998 rap show before we move on with the fights. So, there's a lot of people questioning why Tszyu is doing this. Why not take that money from Turki Al-Sheikh, get in the mix with Terrence Crawford and Virgil Ortiz and those guys? But he wants to continue to pursue the American dream at a time when most Americans have given up on it. And that's why he's fighting here stateside in Florida tonight, trying to become a 2-time champion. So it's been a humbling show in some ways, because again, it's a small venue where reportedly tickets were sold for pretty cheap, but it's been a good, straightforward show with a lot of good boxing. I mean, that opener from Saavedra and Tapia was a war. Saavedra should have won, but this is a No Limit show, and Tapia is a No Limit fighter, so he kind of got a gift draw. And then Yoenis Tellez doing his thing. Yoenis Tellez looks good. He looks like a real player at 154. That was a fun fight to watch. And this, in all likelihood, will be a fun fight to watch. So, you could spend tens of millions of dollars, and those fights are still not selling out in Riyadh. So it's just hard. Most 99% of fighters don't really move the needle to where you can sell out big venues. But this has been a good night of boxing, a straightforward night of boxing. Main event time, for example, was set to be, 8 o'clock our time here on the West Coast, and it's not even 7 o'clock, and both main event fighters are in the ring. That's good that they're listening to us, that we want less BS, and we want to get to the action as soon as possible. And in the ring now is undefeated IBF Super welterweight champion, got my Zia, Kathy Duva, in the corner. Kathy, no longer with her famous red hair, now gray, but Kathy Duva is an OG who has been a resourceful promoter. Just when Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, Al Heyman, Turki Al-Sheikh are running the game, she still found a way, because she's a resourceful woman who knows boxing, to get her hands on a unheralded guy in Bakhram Murtazaliev and get him to a world title. Knows how to move her guys. And funny enough, she promoted Sergey Kovalev. I think Murtazaliev is a poor man's Kovalev. He's a good 1-2 fighter. He's got a good straight right hand. But not the athletic fighter that Kovalev was with his feet in his prime, with that liveliness and that bounce. Not the way Kovalev did, and not a dominant jab like Kovalev had. And even though he has a powerful right hand, not the kind of one-punch right hand that Kovalev had either, pound for pound at light heavyweight. But Bakhram Murtazaliev tough Chechnyan warrior. Last fight went life and death a little bit there with Jack Colquet. So you'd think if he's going life and death with Jack Colquet, Tim Tszyu's going to find a way to win this fight and become two-time champion. But this should be fun to watch, So, what's up, Autopilot? What's up, Real Recognize Real again? What's up, Peter? I'm Sparky. Swavey says Tim Tszyu versus Crawford next. We'll see. Bebop Jones said you got to link up with David Lombardi. Hey, Bebop, I'm more of a Grant Cohn guy, believe it or not. I know a lot of Niner fans hate Grant Cohn, but I actually love his. I'm not, not everything, but for the most part, I love his style of journalism, and I think he's got a lot of guts to go in that building and keep it real, regardless if everyone else in that 49er building hates him. But anyway, Jimmy Lennon Jr. in the ring. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see this fight. Let's go. This should be a good scrap. I am picking Tim Tszyu to win this fight. Sharper, more compact puncher, faster hands, more liveliness with his upper body movement. Tim Tszyu has been developing some good pull counters off that upper body movement. He pulls that body, boom, boom, shoots the straight right hand. Best punches in his arsenal. He's got a good right hand, got a hell of an uppercut with the right hand, and got a great left hook to the body. Tim Tszyu's flaws, a little flat-footed, doesn't throw a lot of punches per round. I think that's his biggest flaw. The number one thing you'd like to see from Tszyu more is a little bit more from the work rate, but that's kind of his style. Tim Tszyu, like Gervonta Davis, like Canelo Alvarez, is a guy that pretty much throws every punch hard, compact, and fast and explosive. And they're not gonna. For example, Beterbiev, who won the undisputed light heavyweight title last Saturday, he does a lot of poking and prodding and sets up little short punch combinations, with short, compact shots. Doesn't need to whip a lot of leverage onto everything. Guys like Tim Tszyu, Tank, and Canelo, they like to do that. They like to whip every punch at full velocity, and so you're probably only going to get about 35 to 45 punches a round because of that method of throwing shots. They're the kind of technique they have. Murtazaliev, on the other hand, who's getting introduced now, and they did right by him. He came in second, getting introduced second. Murtazaliev, more of a guy that can get that work rate up there to 60, 70 punches a round, and does hit hard with that right hand. Everything outside of the more straight line punches, he's a tall 6-foot super welterweight, so some of those shots get a little lanky and can be sharpshooted in between by the more compact, sharper punches of Tim Tszyu. And especially in the closer the range is, the more that'll favor Tim Tszyu. So this should be fun to watch. Let's see. Teacher Lynn pointing out the speed of Tim Tszyu. Autopilot saying Bakhram by decision. Pray for Florida and North Carolina, no doubt. Loke Topo, good to see you, said, I was hoping Sean would call this fight. Love from Australia. All right, they touch gloves, a lot of respect. Tim Tszyu getting to face a Russian champion. His father, of course, was an incredible Soviet amateur from Russia, of Mongolian and Russian descent, was Kostya Tszyu. So Tim Tszyu's got his daddy's blood in him. And got some of his dad's explosiveness and some of his upper body pulling into power shots that Kostya Tszyu had. And you don't see a lot of pull counters from the Russian style. And here we go. Round one, they touch gloves. Murtazaliev, the taller guy, popping his jab first in the center of the ring 2 or 3 times. Tszyu stepping over to his left, keeping his hands up. Sweeping right hand by Murtazaliev, and back on the jab right after that by Murtazaliev. Murtazaliev sticking his jab in, getting off first. And Tszyu whips the left hook, and Murtazaliev catches that on the right glove and goes back to his jab, doubling it up and tripling it up, not stepping into it. But a big looping right hand by Murtazaliev misses the target. Tszyu moving his head out of range, and now Tszyu sticks a straight right hand to the body and sticks his jab into Murtazaliev in the center of the ring. So Murtazaliev getting off first and more often, but Tszyu already a little bit more accurate with that first straight right hand to the body. Good jab by Tim Tszyu, backing Murtazaliev up a little bit. Murtazaliev pecking away with his jab, doubling it up, but Tszyu defensively sound early. Murtazaliev overshoots a right hand. Tszyu dips down in mid-range to get away from that. Catches a left hook on the right guard. 1-2 by Murtazaliev. Does split the high guard a little bit, and he pivots out to his right. Back comes Tszyu with an overhand right off the jab. He misses it and then sticks in a left hook to the body. He's got a little PTSD. He's worried that he got a cut on the top of his head. And Murtazaliev getting off first at long range with those longer arms. Tszyu defensively responsible, knifes in a nice right hand off the jab. Tszyu sticking in the jab and sweeps a right hand and lands it flush. But Murtazaliev coming right back with his own work rate. Murtazaliev sweeps his right hand. Tszyu keeping it tight, catching stuff on the gloves. Nice uppercut by Tim Tszyu. Good hand speed there. Led with a left uppercut. Sweep the two-punch combination around the guard behind it. Murtazaliev blocking it. Nice left hook by Murtazaliev with Tszyu already coming forward, trying to cut that distance. Another short left hook lands for Murtazaliev as Tszyu is trying to come in. Nice right hand, knocks Murtazaliev's back. Tszyu doing a great job in round one of touching with the jab and shooting something off of it after range finding. Murtazaliev letting his hands go in combination, out-punching Tim Tszyu. Tszyu more accurate, but Murtazaliev letting his hands go. And even when Murtazaliev catches a clean shot in round one, he's coming back with combinations. Not landing as clean as Tszyu is punch for punch, but getting off more. 1-2 for Murtazaliev. Tszyu comes back with a left hook in the pocket. A lot of work from Tim Tszyu in the pocket, but he's already good right hand by Murtazaliev. Tszyu with that left hand down, trying to roll the punch and aid a right hand coming forward. So Murtazaliev is reddening up the forehead of Tim Tszyu. Tszyu comes back with a looping right hand, shoots the left uppercut in between the high guard of Murtazaliev. Accurate stuff by Tim Tszyu, but Murtazaliev landing his shots as well. Straight right hand lands for Murtazaliev. Tszyu covering up. Tszyu, at times when these punches, getting hit with these punches, there's a little bit of that Fundora effect still on him. You saw him get worried about the cut in round one. I'll score that round for Murtazaliev. Tszyu coming forward, landing some hard bombs, but Murtazaliev replying and kind of beginning and punctuating the exchanges. I thought the hardest shots of the round were by Tszyu, but Murtazaliev knocked his head around with 2 or 3 right hands himself. And he started and punctuated most of these exchanges. It's going to be tough for Murtazaliev to get a decision. You saw that earlier. Mateo Tapia got a decision after getting dropped 3 times because he's with no limit. So I don't know if a round like that necessarily goes to Murtazaliev. He did eat some clean shots. It was a hard left hook to the body on the slow-mo by Tim Tszyu, but he came back and responded well each time out. So yeah. Peaceful, talking about Benavidez Beterbiev after the fight, brother. We're talking Tim Tszyu, Murtazaliev right now. So Bakhram getting off first. Not the kind of sharp, compact guy that Tszyu is with each and every shot, but letting his hands go more often. Tszyu dipping around jabs, but Murtazaliev with tricky footwork, stepping around Tszyu and just poking and prodding. Good right hand by Murtazaliev, and he pivots out to the left to stay in the center of the ring. And Murtazaliev taking advantage of his length, using his feet to step around Tszyu early on. Good right hand by Tim Tszyu. Tszyu very accurate when he sets up off that jab. Oh, left hook, down goes Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu with little respect for Murtazaliev gets caught with a left hook and he's hurt and a little out of sorts, and that Fundora fight is showing up early. Tim is down on a left hook and his legs are hurt. He's going to have to survive through this. Tszyu, legs not underneath him, ties up Murtazaliev. Tszyu has got to be more defensively responsible and be more patient. He's treating Murtazaliev like he's a bum, like he could just walk through this work. Right uppercut catches Tszyu. Tszyu trying to tie up and getting caught with some sweeping shots, trying to stabilize himself. In the center of the ring is Tszyu. Shoots, he's winging too much on his shots, overcommitting, not setting things up. Good jab by Tszyu, but Tszyu keeps dropping his right hand, and that cost him with that left hook. Tszyu trying to back away and eats a right hand on his way out. He gets countered by a sweeping right hook by Murtazaliev, and a 1-2 drops Tim Tszyu. Actually, it was a left hand that dropped Tszyu. Murtazaliev threw the jab like a power shot and made Tim Tszyu back straight up and dropped him. Tszyu is hurt, and Tszyu is bewildered, and Tszyu isn't his normal ferocious self tonight coming off that Fundora fight. Tszyu lands a straight right hand, but Murtazaliev smelling blood, and Tszyu is not fighting cautious to get out of this round. He's still exchanging with Murtazaliev. He lands a right hand, but his legs aren't underneath him. He's got to clinch and survive this round, and he doesn't know how to so far. He's still trying to wing shots with his legs not underneath him. He lands a left hook, but his hands aren't coming home in these exchanges. He could be put out any minute now. Tszyu missing a right hand, then eating the left uppercut, short left hook by Murtazaliev in the center of the ring. Tszyu lands a counter right hand, sweeps that right hand, and a right uppercut by Tszyu. And now Murtazaliev's on the ropes, and they trade left hooks. Tszyu lands a short left hook and a right hand, and Murtazaliev's a little hurt, but he comes back with a left hook. Tszyu is out on his feet with 15 seconds left. He's trying to hold on. Little chopping right hands by Murtazaliev, straight right hand by Murtazaliev. Tszyu is out on his feet, and he goes down again on a right hand with 4 seconds left in the round. He can't recover. He looks done, chat. He looks done. 6, 7. Tszyu is up. The referee is going to allow the no-limit fighter on a no-limit card to exhaust his chances, but Tszyu is bewildered and out on his feet. This looks over. This looks over. This is a shocking upset. Tszyu coming in with very little respect for Bakhram Murtazaliev, not being defensively responsible, kept dropping his hand after letting his power shots go, not letting the hands come back home. Usually a better defensive fighter than this, but I think Tszyu may have underestimated Murtazaliev, and that Fundora fight that PTSD is showing up. This is why fighters will take a soft touch after a punishing fight like the last one he had. Man, no, I didn't see this coming, chat. Short left hook by Tszyu. Murtazaliev keeping his right hand at home, catches Tszyu in between punches. And that was supposed to be what Tszyu did, but Tszyu loading up on shots, not respecting Murtazaliev the way he would at Terrence Crawford or any of these guys, and he is getting put on his butt tonight, man, repeatedly. And the referee makes Tszyu get looked at by the doctor, buying the A-side fighter more time on his card. Doctor having a little talk with Tszyu. And Tszyu showing he wants to fight, following the doctor giving Tszyu a lot of time because he's the A-side. Doctor checking Tszyu's eyes, trying to give him as much time as possible, feeling like they're in the pocket of the promoter here. And the doctor will allow Tszyu to continue on. Here we go in round 3. Tszyu down 3 times in the second round. And I don't know if he's got the footwork and the ability to survive and be finesse, to get out of this. Bakhram backing him up with the double jab, chopping right hand. Tszyu trying to push off. They trade jabs, but Tszyu still not out of the wilderness. Short left hook catches Tszyu. Murtazaliev's work rate and length, too much for Tszyu early on. They trade jabs. Tszyu eats another jab, knocks his head up. Tszyu not reacting to these punches well. Straight right hand hits Tszyu again, right over the top of his jab. And Murtazaliev has the distance down. He's keeping Tszyu on the end of his shots. Murtazaliev missing a combination. Tszyu dips underneath, goes to the body with 2 body shots. The snap still isn't quite back for Tszyu yet. Murtazaliev back, short left hook, gives up some of his height there. Measures with the jab. Shoots an overhand right. Tszyu catches it on the glove. Another overhand right. Tszyu trying to catch it on the gloves a little bit here. Trying to steady himself. Back on the jab is Tszyu. He's got Murtazaliev's back touching the ropes. Murtazaliev poking and prodding and then touching the body with 2 body shots. Good job by Murtazaliev there. Just off with a right uppercut. 1-2 by Tszyu. Left hook. Down goes Tszyu. That's it. Referee is counting, but this fight is over. Tszyu got blasted with a left hook in between shots. And this homecoming, with his father watching him ringside, I think even the brave and confident Tszyu has had enough. That's 4 knockdowns. Murtazaliev drops Tszyu again with a right hand. When's the referee going to stop this? It's a blowout, and Tszyu is done. Tszyu has no legs. Tszyu can't defend himself. The towel comes in. It's a KO 3. TKO 3 for Bakhram Murtazaliev. How wrong we were. Damn. He ran right through Tszyu. Murtazaliev better than we gave him credit for heading into this fight. Kathy Duva is all smiles. Igis Klimas, this is a veteran team that knows how to move a fighter, and they just spoiled the apple cart. Tszyu is hit rock bottom with this loss. 4 knockdowns in 3 rounds, a complete blowout. And round 1 was competitive, but you could see something with Tszyu wasn't right. He wasn't reacting to these punches well. He was getting a little flustered by the activity of Bakhram Murtazaliev. He wasn't able to just catch, take his time like he has in fights before, and just be patient and pick his shots. He tried to start faster and try to walk down Murtazaliev a little sooner than he tends to. He's usually a patient fighter, but he went right after Murtazaliev from round 1 and walked into a complete buzzsaw. And it's a scary moment for Tszyu because he looks like his intensity has always belied his upbringing in terms of he's probably grown up with money and his dad's a legend, but he's always carried the kind of demeanor of a hungry man who didn't have the silver spoon and everything. And what Murtazaliev may have just done to him is made him reconsider this sport, is made him, for the first time, make him shook. Because Tszyu was fighting with a lot of bravado and intensity and with no fear. And he was a little too fearless from round 1 tonight. Usually he's a patient fighter who takes his time to set up his bombs and is very accurate. But he showed little respect for Murtazaliev. And again, he wasn't reacting to the punches as well as he has before. He was worried about a cut that wasn't there in round 1. And Murtazaliev just, had good footwork, good range, began and punctuated the exchanges. And he may have just beaten. I don't know if Tszyu will ever be the same now. He thought in his heart of hearts he could compete with the Terrence Crawford and a lot of those guys. And Bakhram Murtazaliev was an unheralded champion. I called him the weakest champion in the division. He might still be. I mean, Fundora, Crawford are pretty good, obviously, especially Crawford. But I think Tszyu. This is why a guy like Devin Haney's got to take a soft touch coming back from the Ryan fight. You go in there against a champion or against a legit guy, and shit could go south. Matt Borgenson said, "I saw this coming. I knew about how Murtazaliev was before this fight." Well, I saw him, but I thought the fact that he went 11 rounds with Jack Culcay and Tszyu up until this point was better than Jack Culcay and, has power. Up until tonight was more defensively responsible than we've seen from the, it's an upset. It's an upset. Let me look up the I got to look up the odds. What even were the odds tonight? Because Tszyu had to be a big favorite. I think he was minus 700, something like that. Yeah, Murtazaliev was plus 800 tonight, or plus 450. So if you would have bet $100 on Murtazaliev, you'd have won $450 tonight. This was an upset. This was a legit upset, for sure. Well, hey, another super chat from my man Matt Borgenson said, there's a reason why he got so much step-aside money. This guy was too dangerous. Yeah, Charlo gave him step-aside money. Isn't that right? Matteo Pantangeli says Tim's been overrated. Maria C. What's up, Maria? Gustavo says Murtazaliev was very precise and compact with the exchanges. He was. That surprised me. I do think Tszyu wasn't all the way right tonight. And I don't say that to take away from Murtazaliev, but Tszyu wasn't as patient. When shots started to touch him, normally he'd stay composed and stay on his P's and Q's, select the shots here and there, pick his shots. And once Murtazaliev began to touch him in round 1, it was like he wanted that get back right away. And he just didn't fight defensively responsible. Some of his flaws were exposed by Murtazaliev. They were. He likes to load up on punches, does Tszyu. And we talked before the bell rang that, you know, a guy like Beterbiev will poke and prod with his shots, and set up harder shots. And that's what Murtazaliev did, as opposed to Tim Tszyu, who's trying to load up on every shot. Final punch stats, 67 landed for Murtazaliev to just 39 for Tszyu. Tszyu was accurate, landed 39 out of 100, but was getting outworked from the first bell, from the first minute from Murtazaliev. And yeah, that was, man, that's why they fight the fights. That's why they fight the fights. And Murtazaliev, man, he's a player, obviously. 23-0 now, 17 knockouts. Shout out to Kathy Duva. Resourceful woman, because she knows boxing. When you really know the sport, you could still find a way to get a fighter here and there when you just know boxing. You may not have the resources the bigger promoters have, but she knows how to move. And she got her guy a B-side opportunity on this Amazon show. And Tszyu got his, clock cleaned. PBC Ducks never prosper, Sean. Yeah, didn't work out well for him. He'd have been better off losing like this to Virgil Ortiz. That'd have been better for the sport, too, because Virgil Ortiz, a star would have been born in that scenario. So, hey, I want boxing in the United States to thrive, but looks like these guys are gonna a lot of times have to go do their thing with Turkey. I may not like it, but growing to accept that. Live Your Truth said, "This is why I appreciate defensive fighters." Yeah, you saw a puncher, an aggressive fighter in Tszyu. A lot of those guys, once they get hurt, they don't know how to hold. They're used to dishing it out. Whereas, like you said, a defensive fighter, a boxer, they learn how to turn you, tie you up when they need to, and those were the two things Tim Tszyu didn't know how to do once he was hurt. He didn't know how to turn Murtazaliev to buy time, and just his legs never recovered from the first knockdown. And you can't exchange on Bambi legs. You got to find a way to regain yourself, regain your balance and your composure, and get your legs back underneath you. And Tim Tszyu just couldn't do that. And that's a downfall of his skill set. He's not a guy who ever turned guys a whole lot. He was always a front foot guy for the most part, and ran into a buzzsaw. Ran into a 6-foot Russian buzzsaw. So yeah, that was something. That was something. Gustavo Fontalva said, "To be honest, Tim's never had that type of one-punch KO power, but he always felt he had it. That made him overconfident." He was definitely overconfident tonight, but I also think he was overconfident, and he also, that PTSD of the Fundora fight showed up. When fighters, you think of panicking from getting hit as retreating, or being hurt and moving back on the back foot, all those kinds of things you associate with being hurt. But sometimes panicking when you're hurt is trying to get your get back before it's time to get your get back. Not everybody could be Eric El Terrible Morales, take a big right hand, get hurt, come back with fury, and steal that momentum right back. Only a very, 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 very Evander Holyfield, Eric El Terrible Morales. It's a small group of great fighters that can pull that off. Most guys, you got to take your time, withstand that moment, and then earn your get back by setting it back up, by being patient or what have you. And I think in round one, again, Tim Tszyu, some of those shots that were grazing him and hitting him on top of the head, reddening the top of his head, in fights past, like Mendoza or Tony Harrison or Terrell Goucher, even though he got dropped in the first round of that fight, he would kind of just take them, make sure he's rolling a lot of the steam off of them, take his time, and then when he gets in range and the time and the distance is right, bang, bang. And just over the course of 12 rounds, methodically break down guys like that. And he seemed to want to get his get back right away. And I think part of that was the PTSD of the Fundora fight, is once he started getting touched up, that panic sets in of, uh-oh, here we go again. Here we go again. Because he was getting, bruised up and beaten up by Fundora after the cut, just shots touching him. And I think he wanted to take that play away right away, a little bit desperate, a little bit of panic. And in trying to do that, not being defensively responsible and patient, he walks into shots that I didn't think Murtazaliev would be having. I thought Murtazaliev had to make it work on the outside, keep you on the end of the shot, but Murtazaliev, Tszyu kind of irresponsibly cutting distance, walking into short left hooks that maybe we didn't expect the tall, lanky Murtazaliev to have in his bag. So this is boxing. It happens. That was a fun 3 rounds. Murtazaliev looks like the king of 154 tonight, says Raider Reaper. I think it's a stacked, deep division. And there's a lot of tough fights in this division. Even from the guys who don't have belts, like Boachuk and Madrimov, and even youngsters on the rise. Xander Zayas is going to be a player in this division. And Tszyu now is not one of the top players in this division. He was still considered that after the loss to Fundora. We all cut him slack because Fundora's 6'6", and he was in control of the fight for about a round and a half, 2 rounds, and then the elbow cracked his skull open, and so we all gave him a pass, but there's no excusing this. But I will say, this is why coming off of a physically grueling fight that you lose, you gotta probably take a soft touch, relatively speaking. But this was kind of supposed to be a soft touch, despite the undefeated record and the belt. This was kind of supposed to be a cherry pick to get a belt back on Tszyu to set up a rematch with Fundora or a fight with Crawford or Ortiz, and that's not good. And this also can't be good for PBC. This can't be good for PBC. Tszyu has been, alongside Canelo, Benavidez, and Tank, one of their flagship fighters in this reset on Amazon. And he headlined their first pay-per-view. He lost. And that was more able to be mitigated by the fact that PBC also has Fundora. But now he loses this fight. Kathy Doof is going to go get the bag. She's going to go to Turkey Al-Sheikh. She's not going to be back on a PBC show with Bakhram Murtazaliev in all likelihood. And now what does PBC do with Tszyu? Now they're down to just Canelo, Benavidez, and Tank. And Canelo, he could take Turkey's money next May and fight Crawford. So that, this isn't good for PBC. And the whole optics of this show weren't good for PBC. The action was good. All 3 fights got done in a timely manner. It's not even 7:30 and we're done with the main event. Main events on the East Coast usually don't go off until it's almost midnight or later on the East Coast. So they had 3 action-packed fights. Now the production value was kind of low. Not low, but very straight, very, very bare bones. Very bare bones. Keith Thurman is green at commentating, but he did a solid job. I like Brian Campbell and Brian Custer. I thought they provided a level of professionalism and made this broadcast feel relatively big league in terms of these are pros. Brian Custer's on ESPN. Brian Campbell's been with ESPN. So these are guys that we know, and I think they did a good job. But I say all that to say there's about 1,000 people there. And it was rumored that only the tickets were going for as low as $1. And the guy they wanted to win the fight got bulldozed in 3 rounds. And now the fighter that won, even if they had control of him, he's not marketable here in the United States for this United States-based company. And again, Kathy's probably going to take him overseas to Riyadh. This was a bad night for the PBC. And I want this to work on Amazon Prime because I don't exactly love the sports washing of Saudi Arabia. I don't think it's good for the long-term health of boxing, especially here in America. But this wasn't good for PBC. It was a very scaled-back, bare-bones production, and the guy they set up to win got knocked out in 3 rounds, and that's not good. And they were supposed to have several other shows on the calendar year that were free on Amazon Prime that never came to fruition. So all that to take into account. Let me read some stuff in the chat. Kron said all 3 fights were good. They were. Tapia versus Saavedra was an excellent fight. Let's see. If I was little Charlo, I would have ducked this Ivan Drago dude for years too. Tim shouldn't have taken this fight. Easy to say in hindsight, but shaking my head. Yeah, I mean, I got this one totally wrong. I thought Tszyu would win this fight, and no, Murtazaliev did his thing. Smoked him. Yep. This production makes Pro Box look pretty good. I'd say it was still a little better than Pro Box, but Pro Box is solid. Honestly, I got love for some of the dudes that work for DAZN and do the telecast for DAZN, but I'm not a fan of their telecast, to be quite honest. I think the ESPN Top Rank shows have the best production, and then it's PBC, and then DAZN, all the DAZN affiliates. But yeah, man, this is rough. This is rough. I mean, Amazon Prime. This is where the NFL does Thursday Night Football. I want this to work, but and then you got Tank fighting Lamont Roach in a fight nobody asked as a headline for pay-per-view. Benavidez Morel is awesome, although it's a little early. That fight's a little undercooked as opposed to this era for the last 10, 15 years where fights are over-marinated, overcooked. That fight's a little undercooked, but I'll take it too soon as opposed to too late. That's for sure. So we'll see. PBC should have done a rematch with Tszyu with Fundora right away. I don't think Tszyu wanted it right away. There were some people pissed at me in the comments. All right, I can exit this stream now. There were some people pissed with me in the comments when I broke down the fight wrongly with my man Brendan Taylor. We both picked Tim Tszyu, but I said I think Tszyu is hesitant in that Fundora rematch. And what I mean is not ultimately that Tszyu wouldn't have taken it if he won tonight. And I compared it to Bivol against Beterbiev. And it's not that ultimately they won't get in that ring, but I don't know. Liken it to something tough you do with your work. And it's like, your obligations as a man or a woman, whatever, as a man, you're gonna do it. But that hesitation is there. Man, that was really fucking hard. I know that's a headache and a half. And that's all. There's just a little bit of hesitancy to do it again. And that's what I was saying about Bivol with Beterbiev and Tszyu about Fundora. They're fighters at the end of the day. They will ultimately want another bite at the apple. But that first gut reaction, stepping out of the ring after how punishing a fight like that is, there's a part of you, because you're human, that says, I don't know if I want to go through that again. You contemplate. There's a hesitancy. And I think ultimately Bivol would, of course, get in the ring again with Beterbiev and may very well beat him. He's younger and is the better boxer, and he's younger. Well, I don't know if he's the better boxer. He's younger and has quicker, springier feet, a little bit faster hands. So yeah, but that's what I meant. Isn't that ultimately they won't do it again, but there's a little hesitancy when you're in as punishing a fight as Bivol was with Beterbiev and Tszyu was with Fundora. So got a couple super chats to get to. My man Matt Borgeson said, I don't think Bud gets past Bakhram, to be honest. And Matt Borgeson, always critically thinking about boxing. And it sounds like my man Matt, he's not going off name recognition. He understands that he's picking a undefeated, in his prime, natural super welterweight who's 6 feet tall over a 5'8" guy who came up from 135 and is set to turn 37 years old. And that's not crazy. I don't think Matt is crazy for thinking Bakhram would beat Crawford. I would give the edge to Crawford because he's Terrence Crawford. But if you take that name value away, it's a fight. It's a tough fight. That's a tough fight for Crawford, and that's a fight Crawford's not going to take. Crawford wants the Canelo fight. He wants that big payday with Canelo. And I really don't know what Crawford wants outside of Canelo. I don't really think he wants Fundora. I don't really think he would want to fight Bakhram Murtazaliev. Not that he can't win those fights, but at 37, coming up from 47, 40, and 35 against these big 154-pounders who really aren't that famous, I don't know how much that really entices him. He wants Canelo. And maybe he'll fight Virgil Ortiz for a shit ton of money that Turkey puts on the table, especially if Turkey, who's got a partnership with the WBC and the WBA, especially if he could somehow convince not the WBO but the WBC to strip Fundora and then make Fundora have to settle for fighting Errol Spence for the WBO. But it looks like it'll be the other way around. It looks like they'll find a way to get the WBO off of Fundora, but not the WBC. But the WBC would make it ever so more slightly enticing for Crawford to do a Virgil Ortiz fight. But I really think Crawford wants Canelo. I don't think he's that interested in anything else. And all the champions at 154 are a tough fight for Crawford. Again, he's 37 and 5'8" and started at lightweight. And Madramov's not physically as big as Murtazaliev or Fundora. So those are tough fights for Terence Crawford, even the great Terence Crawford. Christopher, thank you, says, with the super chat, says, straights and jabs cracks Tim's defense. I thought it was the cut in Fundora's fight, but the same thing happened here. What's your thoughts? Well, Christopher, my thoughts are a little bit of that PTSD, and I apologize for those who heard me say it a few times during the stream, but I'm sure we got people coming in now to talk about the fight after the shocking TKO 3. I think you're right, and I think what Murtazaliev did was, poke and prod. Guys like Tony Harrison did this too, but Tony Harrison was kind of faded, closer to shot than he was in his prime, and doesn't have the physicality, the durability that Murtazaliev has right now, or ever did, And Murtazaliev was touching him, poking and prodding, and setting up shots off of the prods, off the soft control, and just poking and prodding and throwing little decoy shots to set up other shots. And I think Tszyu, who normally, before that Fundora fight, when guys would touch him up, and I mean touch him up, touch the top of the head, not hit him on the button, he would be keeping his chin tucked, applying pressure, catching shots on the top, and he would be patient and just kind of withstand that, stay defensively sound and responsible. And instead, he began to panic, like, uh-oh, here we go again. I'm getting touched up again early. I got to take the play away right away. Whereas before the Fundora fight, with his confidence all the way up, he would have, that's okay, that's all right, touch, he's touching me, that's all right, he's touching me, boom, and just place his bombs. And just do that methodically over 12 rounds. And over the course of 12 rounds, class tells over time, he'll be the better man. And he'll hurt his guy with his accuracy and punch placement. But in this fight, immediately he worried about a cut that wasn't there. That's PTSD from the Fundora fight. And then those little shots that were grazing him, because in round one, he did place a couple of hard shots off the jab. He touched with his jab and then boom, sweep a overhand right. Or he touched off the jab, sweep overhand right, split the high guard, split Murtazaliev's guard with a left uppercut. But Murtazaliev, he would get off first with his little touch shots, and then something would come back from Tim Tszyu in round one, and then he'd punctuate. And what he did there, I don't know how aware he was of doing that. I think he was just fighting his fight. But in doing so, Tszyu was anxious to take the play away early, to take the momentum early, right? And there's a little bit of front runner in that. It's, you don't trust yourself the way you did before Fundora. You want to get that play back right away, and instead of being patient and letting it come to you. And that's a little bit of panic and desperation because punches are touching you a little bit up top. And Murtazaliev, in punctuating those exchanges and always replying when Tszyu was hitting them in round one, it didn't let Tszyu get what he was looking to get out of that. And that's impose himself and rebuild that confidence. And Murtazaliev never let him rebuild that confidence by finishing and punctuating the exchanges. Then we go into round two, and Tszyu's being defensively reckless. He's loading up on shots, and the hands aren't coming back home to be defensively responsible. And Murtazaliev, instead of just, keeping him on the end of his shots and turning him, that's what he did to start round two. Put him in the blender a little bit. Touch him, turn him. And then that made Tszyu anxious to close the gap. Boom, gets caught by a left hook, a punch he probably didn't expect from the long arms of Murtazaliev to shorten up his shot and catch him coming in. And once he got dropped on the first knockdown, it was a wrap. I think the first knockdown, he got dropped 4 times, so it's hard to remember which did when. But I think that first one may have been a right hand. The second one, I think he threw a 2 and then sat down on his 1 on his jab, almost like it was a power shot. Threw it more like a power shot, and Tszyu never recovered. He couldn't. He does the flaws in his style as a pressure fighter are he doesn't know how to turn guys and tie them up and slow the pace down when on the back foot. And man, it's a tough night for Tim Tszyu, man, and he may never be the same. So that's my thoughts there, Christopher. Got a super chat got a couple I got to get to. Got one from Kobe, who said, this will be boxing's version of the Monday Night Wars, WCW versus WWF. As long as PBC stays with their roots like Vince, Turkey will take his cash elsewhere. Kobe, I love that post because there's truth there. There is. Turkey is like WCW right now, and they're the NWO. They're the New World Order. They literally, Vision 2030 lining up with Agenda 2030 from the United Nations. It kind of feels like, the UN and NATO. They're gonna bless Turkey and Mohammed bin Salman with more global influence if they kind of play the game the way they are, and they're being rewarded with casinos and good press coverage. Like they're allowing them to sports wash, to invest their money in the West. And I think the trade-off, it all has to do with Israel and Palestine and all that kind of, anyways, it's a little deep. But anyways, they're buying up all the talent and they're putting on all the matches. Vince McMahon never put on Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. Ted Turner, Eric Bischoff, WCW, they say, we'll do it. And that's, the United States could never find enough money to match Beterbiev and Bivol. Turki Al-Sheikh says, I'll do it. England couldn't find the money to match Usyk and Fury. Turki Al-Sheikh says, I'll do it. But if you kind of hold on, like Kobe's saying, to your roots, and you stay innovative, that was the real story of WWF versus WCW, was American exceptionalism. Other people look at what Vince McMahon did as evil capitalism, buy out the other territories, run down the smaller promoters, and monopolize. And there's obviously truth to that, but there's also truth to his American exceptionalism, his innovation, you can take all my, like what Dr. Dre did with Aftermath Records. Like, you could take all my masters from Death Row, you could take, all the Chronic, Doggy Style, everything I made, and I'll have to start anew with new talent, 50 Cent, Eminem. But the problem there is PBC hasn't made any new talent. They don't have a young Steve Austin, Dwayne The Rock Johnson on the rise, D'Lo Brown and all that. And but ideally, I'd love it to work out that way, that Al Heyman gets his Vince McMahon on and competition brings the best out of him. And that hasn't quite happened. Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach, that ain't quite it. Gervonta Davis, Frank Martin, David Benavidez, Vazdeck, that ain't quite it. Benavidez, Morrell, now that's more like it. But give credit to Benavidez. He put his foot down and said, no, don't domesticate me. Don't feed me. Don't feed me something easy like a Jesse Hart and get me a nice payday and keep me quiet and soften me up to eventually lead me to the slaughter for Canelo at 68, drop me down from 7. No. I'm really serious about this. I really do want to fight great fights. Give me my boogeyman. I'm Canelo's boogeyman. He won't fight me. Ennis was Crawford's boogeyman. He moved up and didn't want to fight him. Inoue's got a boogeyman in Nakatani right now. He's not that interested in fighting. Benavidez hasn't put in the work those guys has, so he's doing the right thing. Let me fight my boogeyman, who everyone doesn't. Instead of me chasing Canelo and playing the violin for why, Canelo ducked me at 68, and so I got to fight these bullshit fights at 75. No, people don't want to hear that. So he fights Morrell. That's more of what PBC needs right now, is they need this competition from Turkey to make them put on the most competitive fights possible. And another thing they need is to take a page out of Top Rank's book and actually restock the cabinets with real young talent. I think PBC looks at Top Rank, what they do with Keyshawn Davis, what they did with Shakur, what they got with Abdullah Mason, and I think they think, oh, that's underwhelming. Great, you got all this great young talent, but they're not going anywhere in terms of becoming a star. Well, then you pick some of them up and develop them and make them a star if that's how you see it. So Um, but yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about that comparison, Kobe, but PBC has to show more signs of life to be the Vince McMahon to Turkey Al Sheikh's Ted Turner. Because this 2024 wasn't it. It wasn't it. Canelo Munguia was the best fight they put on this year. And Tszyu and Fundora. But then Canelo fights Berlanga, and they gotta, because they're in a vulnerable position where they don't have, where if Canelo tells PBC to fuck off, that's okay. We gotta, if it was like 10 years ago, they'd have a half dozen other marketable guys they can move around the chessboard and make something happen with. They don't have that now, so they're at Canelo's mercy. You want Berlanga? You want us to work with Eddie Hearn, who we'll do whatever you want. You don't want to do the Benavidez fight? That's fine. You don't have to do the Benavidez fight, champ. And so they got to show more signs of life with that. And to your comparison, in 96, the signs of life are always there for McMahon. But in 96, McMahon was still figuring it out, right? He brought back the Ultimate Warrior in WrestleMania 96. He had Stone Cold as the ringmaster. I know Austin 316 happened at King of the Ring that year, but I love the comparison, Kobe. I could keep going on with it, but Michael R. Davis says, we appreciate your candid honesty, Sean. You bring integrity to boxing journalism. Oh, thank you, man. I'm trying because I think that's my only path to success. I'm not gonna out entertain some other channels. I'm not gonna get the most views. I have to keep it. I have to be like the most unbiased, the most subjective kind of thing. That's my lane, and that I gotta keep. So, and everyone thinks I'm on Benavidez' dick, so I don't even know if I'm fulfilling that. Pause. But, and I'm not, by the way. I do think he could beat Beterbiev. I pick fights wrong. I pick more fights right than I do wrong. I picked this fight wrong. But that's another topic for another day. Or not, unless you guys want to talk about that for a minute. But George, thank you for the super chat, says, no Crawford, give me Jaron Ennis versus Bakhram Murtazaliev. That's a tough fight for Ennis, and that'll test him and show us what he's got. I love that fight. And Ennis is the IBF welterweight champion. It shouldn't be hard for him to move up to 154 and fight Bakhram Murtazaliev. He should be able to get in line for that IBF title shot relatively quick. He's with Eddie Hearn. I already told you Kathy's going to go get the bag now with Turkey. She's going to go cash Bakhram out and make some money overseas in Riyadh. So why not, Jaron? I think you match made well there. Jaron boots Ennis against Bakhram Murtazaliev at 154. It's a real fight. Ennis, for all his talent, and even as good as Murtazaliev looked right now, he isn't the talent that Ennis is, but talent doesn't always win everything. Ennis has defensive holes. Avanesian touched him a little bit. One guy I really respect in the boxing business, when we talk about Jaron Ennis, we talk about the talent that jumps off the page, how he could beat anybody from 47, not saying he will, could beat anybody from 47 to 54, but tuck that chin, bruh, is always the line he says, tuck that chin, bruh. And because he leaves that chin out there and it's vulnerable, and Murtazaliev, he showed us tonight the power is real, because I didn't know if the power was real. Going 11 tough rounds with Jack Colque. One judge had Colque up. I didn't know if the power was real, fighting in small venues, knocking guys out on 480p cameras, on boxing highlight reel knockout channels. I didn't know if that was going to translate to a legitimate championship level, and it did. So if Ennis projects to get hit against Bakhram Murtazaliev the same way he got hit against lesser fighters, that could be an issue. That could be an issue, especially coming up from welterweight. I actually really love that fight now that you floated out there, because, again, Ennis is the IBF champion at 47. It shouldn't take too much work for him to get a title shot at the IBF at 54. And that's a very tough fight, man. That's a fight that will test Ennis in a lot of ways. I'd like to think Ennis wins that fight, just because with all the talent and dimensions of talent and speed that he has, you'd think that he could put something together to beat the package of Bakhram Murtazaliev. But that'd be definitely the best fight he's been in so far. And that'd be a hell of an introduction to 154. And Bozy Ennis just said they're thinking of moving up to 54 because nothing's really at 47. So I love that fight. Let me see. I think I missed one from my guy Molly Mall, and I got to get to my man Matt Borgeson again. Molly Mall says, this fight makes me wish Errol would take a tune-up. Yeah. Molly, it's not going to end well for Errol Spence, I think. But you got to fight the fights. Nights like these continue to show me and all of us why you got to fight the fights. We can make our picks. We can prognosticate. But it's got to play out in the ring. You know, anything. Larry Merchant used to call it the theater of the unexpected. We've been used to a lot of mismatches in the United States over the last several years. And so I think we've lost sight of that because we've gotten so many fights where we know what's going to happen and it tends to go to script. But that wasn't the case tonight. And Errol, though, against Fundora, I don't see that fight ending well for Errol Spence. Like, I just don't. Spence looked bad against Crawford. His balance was off from round one. That's always a sign of a shot fighter, of a truly faded fighter. I remember Roy Jones was breaking down a Felix Trinidad fight. It was Winky Wright. And Roy kept talking about Trinidad's balance and little things like his weight, his weight distribution was off. He'd leaned too much over his front foot, and it kind of didn't have his balance right, like Trinidad of old in the welterweight days. And Roy always said that was something he was taught coming up as maybe the number one sign of a faded fighter is just their balance. Their balance isn't there. And Roy, it's funny because Roy was shot too, and he'd wind up fighting a shot Trinidad a couple years later on HBO. On pay-per-view from Madison Square Garden. They actually sold kind of decent, too. What was that, January 08? I digress. But that's how Spence looked. Like, his balance didn't look good. Every time he tried to load up on a shot, he was off balance. I know Crawford and his counterpunching and his piston jab that night out of the southpaw stance, that was responsible for a lot of that. But Spence just didn't look good. And what makes us think a year and a half later against a 6'6", 154-pounder who's in his prime that things are going to get any better for him? I mean, think about it. For him to be vintage Errol Spence, he has to get in Fundora's chest and eat him up. And that means no matter what, he has to walk through punches. And you saw Tszyu react to punches not as good. I bet you Devin Haney, if he turned around and fought a puncher in his first fight, even a guy like Matias, who he could outbox on his best night, I bet you'd see him not react well in his first fight after Ryan Garcia to punches. That's why matchmaking is important after you take a lot of punishment to recover yourself and rebalance yourself, restabilize yourself as a fighter. And yeah, I just don't think I don't think it's going to go well for Errol. And, you know, even when I talk to people close to PBC, they're willing to do what Errol wants. He's made that company enough money and had enough success in his career that if you want that fight, you can have it, champ, is kind of the sentiment. But I also hear that they wouldn't hate it if he just walked away, given how he looked in the Crawford fight and the aftermath of that fight. So, you know, this is why we fight the fights. You never know. You never know. Maybe Errol Spence turns back the clock. His body is chiseled up at 54. He's strong. His legs are underneath him. And maybe he gets in Fundora's chest and is the Errol Spence of old and is ripping combinations and giving. But I don't see that happening. I think what's more likely is he runs into a buzzsaw with Fundora and Fundora stops him. Because Fundora throws a million punches. He does have power. Unlike Spence, he's in his prime. You know, we never seen Spence at 54. He was an accumulation puncher at 47. So it's not like, you know, he's going to knock Fundora out with one shot in all likelihood. He could kill his body if he brings up his vintage version of himself. But yeah, I say all that to say I'd favor Fundora. Absolutely. Serrano Concept says, Sean, which fighter coughed in 1986 on April 7th at 9:30 a.m.? That's a good question. Who fought? Let me take a look. Who fought on April 7th, 1986 in boxing history? I know it's kind of a wise ass question, but well, Mr. T did, because Mr. T wound up wrestling Rowdy Piper at WrestleMania 2. So, and Mr. T would wear boxing gloves in those worked fights with WWF. So I'm going to say Mr. T coughed on April 7th at 9:30 a.m., 1986. Matt Borgeson says, thank you for the super chat. Matt says, I want to see Teofimo fight Ryan Garcia. I actually have Ryan Garcia stopping Teofimo. I don't see Teo having much power in his move to 140. I agree with you, but I agree that the Ryan I saw fight Devin Haney would beat Teofimo. But what is that Ryan Garcia? He didn't have to make an actual weight class that night, and then he popped for a PED. You know, what's he look like passing a drug test and making weight at the same weight the other opponent did? You know, these are legit things that he has to answer. If he can do those required prerequisite things for his future fights and still be the same fighter that fought Devin Haney, he could become the biggest thing in boxing, and at least in America. You know, Ryan Garcia has the talent, the hand speed, the power, the polarizing charisma to become the guy. You know, love him or hate him. He just has to serve out the suspension, make weight on the up and up, pass a drug test. Notice I didn't say not take drugs. I said pass a drug test, because I think it's very conceivable that a lot of these guys are taking some performance enhancers, but they're not getting caught for it. And so he's got to not get caught or not take them, either one. At the end of the day, piss clean one way or the other. Make weight like the other fighter has to make weight. And if he produces the kind of performance he did April 20th with all those things, then he could become the guy. He could become the face of boxing in America. But let's just see what he can do. Let's see what he can do with everything on the up and up. And if he can replicate what he did April 20th against Teofimo, in a rematch with Tank, in a rematch with Devin, in a fight with Rayo, in a fight with Mario Barrios at 47 for the WBC, so on and so forth, he could become the fucking guy. But he's got to make weight and he's got to pass a drug test. Two things that I think he's very capable of, you know, so we'll see. But I do think, based on their, you know, recent outings, that, oh man, Matt's got a couple of super chats I got to get to. Let me see. Let me see here. Matt Borges said, I just want a fighter whose name we can pronounce to not get exposed against a fighter whose name I'll never be able to pronounce. Well, I think, you know, this will probably get some flack, especially from fans of Eastern European fighters and fighters everywhere around the world. I think what you're seeing with some of the Eastern European domination going on is this. I think the American talent has thinned and isn't what it was. I think Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, you know, Jaron Ennis, Terrence Crawford too, Gervonta Davis, I think these guys are all good. Even in Crawford's case, he's a great fighter. Tank could be a great fighter if he would challenge himself with Shakur, Devin, Teo, and just like I was talking about with Ryan, you got to beat these guys making weight and passing your drug test. Well, Tank, the Ryan win is good and all, even though he's never won a title. You got to let the guy come in strong and healthy. Yeah, you knocked out Mario Barrios. He was killing himself at 140. He's not the fighter at 140 that he's grown into at 47. Yeah, you knocked out Ryan Garcia. That wasn't the hydrated and strong Ryan Garcia that Devin Haney had to get knocked around by in their no contest. That, you know, you got to fight a weight drain Ryan. So Tank might be great. He's got to prove it. Crawford is great. Haney and Stevenson are accomplished, decorated professionals who are excellent fighters, especially for today's era. But I say all that to say, it's not the late 90s, early 2000s lineup of Bernard Hopkins, Oscar De La Hoya, you know, Sugar Shane Mosley. These guys are Floyd Mayweather, obviously. It's different. If it was here with Floyd, Oscar, Shane, and Floyd, Oscar, Shane, who's the other one? Roy. Then it's down here a little bit more with Crawford, Tank, Haney, and Stevenson. And if the Vasily Girovs and the Kid Diamonds and all the Roman Karmazin who beat Kasim Uma for this belt that they were fighting for tonight, the IBF Super welterweight title. If these guys were here, they're now getting better, and the Americans have gotten worse. So, you know, to your point, Matt, who said, I just want a fighter whose name we can pronounce to not get exposed against a fighter whose name I'll never be able to pronounce. These guys have gotten better. They've gotten more sparring in America, being the Eastern Europeans and others. And the Americans are not as hungry as they used to be. They're more distracted, and the talent pool is thinner. There used to be a lot of American boxers, and there's a fewer number of that. There's fewer great coaches in America, fewer great boxing gyms in America, fewer great amateurs and amateur programs in America. That's why we haven't had a gold medalist in 20 years. Meanwhile, Eastern Europe turns out gold medalists left and right. So they're getting better. They're hungrier. We, the Americans, not as hungry, not as deep a talent pool, and not as good, and not as great, not as special as De La Hoya, Mosley, Mayweather, Jones from 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And that's what I think you're seeing, Matt Borgeson. And that'll make everybody mad. That'll make the Americans mad because I'm saying they're not as good as they used to be. And that'll make the Eastern European fans mad because I'm saying it's not that you guys have ascended. It's not that you've ascended to the levels of the greatest of the great American fighters, Ali and Robinson and Leonard and so on and so forth. It's that they're just not as good as they used to be, and you've gotten a lot better. So that's what I think has happened. That's my take. And then Matt says, is it crazy to think that Keith Thurman would have an upset of Tszyu on that night? I don't think so. It's not crazy. I still think Tszyu would have won that fight over the course of 12. I think, I think Fundora kind of taken. I'm sorry about the hair, chat. It's getting cut. It's getting trimmed next week, but and I gotta shave and get ready to leave in the morning, so I'll hop off in a minute. But I think I still think Tszyu would have won that fight because Thurman is inactive, hasn't fought at a top level at 50. I know he knocked out Carlos Quintana on HBO back in 2012, just like I knew someone coughed April 7th, 1986. But no, I still think Tszyu would have won that fight, and I think Fundora taking a pound of flesh out of Tszyu, it helped Bakhram Murtazaliev tonight, who may have beaten him up anyways, but I think that helped, and I don't think Thurman is Murtazaliev. He doesn't have Murtazaliev's. He's 5'7". He doesn't have Murtazaliev's length. He's not as fresh as Murtazaliev, not as hungry as Murtazaliev. But no, I mean, you're not crazy to think Thurman might have upset Tszyu. Again, that's the theme of tonight. Anything's possible at the championship level, but I still think Tszyu would have won on that particular night, back in March. So, but not crazy. Let me see. I got another super chat from Christian Salvador. What's up, Christian? Says, why is it that Bam Rodriguez keeps fighting old champions that are over 34 years old? Now he is waiting for punishment to turn 34. He should move up and fight Junto. Yeah, that's probably what Inoue wants. But I think Junto is a little big for Bam. Bam is 5'2". Junto's 5'7". That's why it'd be a great fight. I mean, that would really be, just how special is Bam Rodriguez? Is he special enough to beat a bigger man who's also rounding into being a special fighter in his own right, in his own prime at 26, Junto Nakatani? I want Nakatani to get the Inoue fight. I think that's Inoue's Canelo Benavidez, his Crawford Ennis, his Tank versus Shakur. Although Tank and Shakur, I kind of blame both of them more so. Whereas with Crawford and Canelo, it's like, you're the fucking man. You really call the shots. And you snap your fingers and Ennis is in the ring with you. Same with Canelo and Benavidez. Whereas with Tank, it's kind of like that. But, Turkey's money muddies that a little bit. Whereas before, someone like a Turkey would come in. It's like, if you want to make money in boxing, you got to fight the money guy. And the money guy would be the big A-side fighter out there in your weight class. In this case, Gervonta Davis. But now the big money guy is getting with Turkey Al-Sheikh. And so, Shakur goes to Eddie Hearn instead of trying to really go the PBC route, which is what his big brother Crawford had to do to fight Spence. That's the blueprint. If you want the Tank fight, you saw what Bud had to do. He had to get down with PBC and then beat the shit out of Spence in the ring. Well, beat the heck out of Spence in the ring and That's the play. Is yeah, you play by their rules, and then once the bell rings, it's your rules, and you're the boss. You got to let them be the boss in the negotiation, in the network, and all that. But then once you get that fighter in the ring, then he's yours. Then he's all yours, and you can make it happen. But um, instead, he goes through Eddie Hearn, who's becoming like a glorified middleman for Turki Al-Sheikh. Same thing with Arum and Warren and De La Hoya. And that's part of why I'm going to always hold everybody accountable. Like, hey, PBC, I heard your show was selling for $1 a ticket, and there was maybe 1,000 people there, and your A side got blown out in 3 rounds. But salute to you for not selling out to the sports washing and trying to stay true as an American company, right? And keep competing instead of selling out. Credit to you there. But I say all I'm getting, yeah, but so Shakur, I blame him a little bit more than I do the B sides for the other big draws in the sport, Canelo and Crawford. Tank, I blame him too. You escaped your 20s without facing an elite fighter, without ever unifying, without ever becoming a lineal champion, without ever fighting someone on the pound for pound list. You got some good wins. Barrios, but he was at 40. Ryan, he was weight drained too, but still good wins. Santa Cruz is small, but you knocked him out. Good win. 4-division champ. Isak Cruz, good win. But Ryo wound up showing if you can box and you're a pretty good fighter, you could beat Isak Cruz, even though he's dangerous. So, you escaped your 20s without doing anything great, even though you're a really good draw. So, I blame Tank and Shakur for that. Anyways, back to your super chat about Bam. I think Junto might be a little too much for Bam. He's almost a half foot taller than him, punches extremely hard. Even as great as Bam's footwork is and cutting off, taking angles to cut distance with great head movement, upper body movement, great lead foot, that first step and setting everything up, all kinds of tricks with the footwork. At the end of the day, he's a half foot shorter trying to cut distance on a legitimate, bona fide puncher who's got a brick, a cinder block for a left hand in Junto Nakatani. If he can get in range in the inside, there's a tall torso there. He could eat Nakatani up on the inside, but I don't know, man. That's tough. I think that's a tough fight for Bam. I'd probably give the edge to Nakatani, but I'd give the edge to Inoue over Nakatani because he is a much, much bigger puncher than Bam Rodriguez. He's a little bigger, and he's a little bit better athlete. Bam has shown really good athleticism, but Inoue's like the most athletic fighter in the game right now. Him, Ennis, Tank Davis is very athletic, and there's a few others. Usyk's very athletic. He's not a heavy-handed puncher, but shit, he put Tyson Fury on his ass. But I think Bam's done what he's supposed to do. Like De La Hoya beating Whitaker and Chavez, you're supposed to knock off the aging champions. They're still champions. They're still holding on to a belt like Estrada was. He's got some great wins for a guy in his mid-20s. He's cleaning out the division. He's snatching the torch from all the guys who held this division down for years. He should have snatched it from Chocolatito while he had the chance. Now that fight doesn't mean as much. But yeah, that's all. I hear what you're saying. You want to see Bam, who's on everybody's pound for pound list. He's earned that. You want to see him fight a prime guy, not a guy who's a borderline Hall of Famer or a Hall of Famer like a Gallo Estrada. But I give him credit because he wasn't picking on these guys, I think Quadras was for a vacant belt. Gallo was for the belt. Soren Visai, wasn't for a belt, I believe. It might have been. I don't think so. But, that was still a great win. He's got some great wins. I agree with you. And if he were to fight Nakatani, I favor Nakatani. So, thank you. Got a couple other super chats to get to. Let me see. He's waiting for Puma. Okay, so he's waiting for the Fernando Martinez. That's a great fight. I think he beats Martinez. Christian Salvador said, my point is, why do they put him on pound for pound list when he beat 3 old champions that went to war with each other? Well, he beat them all in scintillating fashion, and that's good. It's like what De La Hoya did when he got up there. Even he beat Camacho. He beat Miguel Angel Gonzalez. He beat Whitaker. He beat Julio Cesar Chavez. He cleaned up the welterweight division of all the guys who were holding on, and he knocked them all. He pushed them all off the cliff and assumed control. And that's what Bam has done. And now that he's done his part to rid the division of the aging champions, except Chocolatito, then now he can get to the prime guys like Puma Martinez. I think he beats Puma Martinez, but that's a good fight. Martinez, I remember I covered his fight when he took the belt off Encajas a couple years ago. He's a bad motherfucker. He throws a lot of punches. He stays in the pocket and can throw 1,000 punches a fight. Good pop in both hands, but you would think Bam's talent and footwork and versatility, he'll beat Puma Martinez. And there you go. He'll beat a prime guy in a unification fight. That's a good step. Let me see. I got another one from Christian Salvador again. Said Rungvisai is 37 years old. I'm not saying they weren't faded champions or Rungvisai he fought when Rungvisai wasn't a champion, right? But you got to get on by that. I mean, that's how it always worked. Ali beat a faded Floyd Patterson past his prime. You got to, Jerry Quarry got on by knocking out an old Ken Norton. That's how he got the Larry Holmes fight. That's what you do. That's how it's supposed to be, actually, is you're active when you're young and you rid the division of the aging champions, the aging names. You clear them out, and then when you clear them out, now you got to fight the young bulls that are coming up just like you, that are young and hungry just like you. That I keep likening it to De La Hoya. De La Hoya got rid of Camacho and Gonzalez and Chavez and Whitaker, and then he had to fight Ike Cuarte and Felix Trinidad at welterweight, and that's what time I agree with you. That's what time it is for Bam. Not hating, but Puma will be 35 by then. Damn. Yeah. Well, he feels young because he hasn't had a whole lot of fights. What has Puma had? Like, I think he was like 15-0 when I saw him beat. Let me check. Shit, well then he's old. Shit. But at least he's a young 35, Christian Salvador. He got 17 fights. Yeah, he's 33. He's 33. 17-0. Yeah, he just beat Ioka. That's a great win. Ioka was on the bottom of a lot of people's pound-for-pound lists, like at 9 or 10. So, yeah, Bam. Well, who else is at 115? Hold on. Super flyweight rankings. Let me see. No, we gotta go down to super flyweight. Puma's got the IBF and the WBA, so he's about to have 3 out of 4. And the only other recognizable names are guys that don't have belts anymore in this division. Kosei Tanaka, Kazuto Ioka, Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. Chocolatito's is mandatory. He'll probably beat Chocolatito, give him a retirement payday. That won't mean a whole lot anymore, to your point, Christian Salvador. I think Bam should have fought Chocolatito after he beat Cuadras, and Chocolatito beat Julio Cesar Martinez. They should have fought then, but there was this respect, and the Mr. Honda didn't want to do it, and all this other nonsense. They should have fought. And then for Nakatani, yeah, Bam's too small for Nakatani right now. And I'd pick Nakatani to win that fight. There's no super sexy fight at 118 for Nakatani. His mandatory is Gallo Estrada. Who wants to see that? Gallo doesn't look good anymore. He's faded. Great fighter in his day, but he's not beating Nakatani right now. I want to see Nakatani fight a new way. So yeah. Let me see. Super chat again from Christian Salvador says he's getting a lot of credit for beating old champions. He's waiting Puma to turn 35. I think he beats Puma. So he, whenever we get that fight. George with the super chat says we will see 3 faces of boxing: Ryan, Tank, and Benavidez. Not a bad. Matt Borgeson, I missed your super chat. Let me see. My bad, Matt. I'm looking for it. Matt says the shot that Bam got dropped by from Estrada, Nakatani wouldn't let him off the canvas if he lands the same. I see the same punch having success. I'm with you, Matt. I got Nakatani in that fight. Like, that doesn't mean pound for pound Nakatani's better than Bam. I actually suspect Bam's a slightly better. Nakatani, right now defensively, Nakatani isn't getting exploited in part because he's so much bigger than the guys he's fighting in the flyweight divisions, and he has so much power that in order for you to get inside on him, you got to navigate the accurate, long, straight left hand. He has good other punches in his arsenal too, but that left hand is a moneymaker. It's one of the best punches in boxing. But when he has to move up to 22 and maybe 26 and fight guys that are more his own size, some of those he's not the most defensively sophisticated guy. He's one of those guys that the threat of their offense helps their defense a lot. It's not that they got a million different defensive maneuvers, a shoulder roll, great upper body movement, great slips, great different hand placements and parrying. He's a pretty he's just a defensively responsible fighter. His hands come back home. He has great sense of distance, but he is one of those guys that the threat of his offense and his power, it helps his defense a lot. And when he has to move up and fight bigger guys, you might see that get taken advantage of in a way that flyweights can't take advantage of it. So I say all that to say, yeah, again, I favor him over Rodriguez, who's a smaller guy, about half a foot shorter, and in order to cut distance, has to navigate the accuracy, the pinpoint accuracy on the outside of Nakatani. So, yeah, that's what I think. But let me see. I got and again, for saying the three faces of boxing might be, what's going on, Eric Gomez? Thank you for the shout out. For George saying that the three faces of boxing could be Ryan, Tank, and Benavidez, I think that's conceivable. That's not a bad take. Ryan could become the guy if he can win fights with everything on the up and up like he did against Haney, and he may very well beat Haney in a rematch, even if Haney takes some softer fights, regains his confidence, keeps the right hand up, gets back to being a pure boxer. Ryan ultimately might just have his number, but he's got to prove that. And I'd love to see him fight Tank at a weight where he's comfortable, but Tank might just get him again. We got to see. But those three could become the faces of boxing in America. We'll see. That's a fair take. I don't push back against it too much. I don't know if they're going to become that. All three have question marks. Ryan defensively, skills-wise, no question about his talent, but question about his temperament, long-term, dedication, mindset, skills, nuance to the game, the sophistication to his science. But when you're just tall and hit hard as fuck and fast as fuck, sometimes you don't need all that other stuff, and you might be fine without it. Tank, he escaped his 20s without accomplishing something great. Definitely done some really good things. He would say, how could you say I haven't accomplished anything great? I've came out of the slums of Baltimore with a messed up upbringing, and I've become a multimillionaire and headline pay-per-views and outsold guys that you said may have done something great, like becoming undisputed, like Devin Haney, or becoming a lineal unified champ and winning a silver medal like Shakur. What do you mean I haven't done anything great? But I'm holding you to the scale of great, not really good. We're not talking about your personal life. We're talking about relative to what greatness and the standard of greatness has been in boxing for over a century. Didn't do anything great in his 20s. Did some really good things. Knocked out Pedraza to become a champ at 23. He was the youngest world champion in boxing when he did that. He's beaten some good fighters, but yeah, that's that point. So there's questions with Tank. And then with Benavidez' stock got lower after the Vazdik decision. He didn't stop Plant. Kenny Bayless kind of had something to do with that. He was like the Marvel vs. Capcom assist for Caleb Plant that night. But I mean, just look at the comments I get for thinking Benavidez could beat Beterbiev. Most people aren't sold on Benavidez. They think, they use words like hype job and everything. I think if he can deliver, he's got the right blend of exciting fan-pleasing style with enough skills to not just be exciting, but be elite. And if he can be elite and exciting, then he could become one of the faces of boxing. But the jury's out on all three of those guys right now. So... then Christian Salvador giving me a super chat saying, Junto Nakatani is pound for pound, in my opinion. He beat young fighters. I don't think he's pound for pound. I think he definitely has earned his spot amongst the pound for pound list. But he needs the opportunity to fight Inoue to show he could beat. I mean, Inoue is number 2 pound for pound behind Usyk. That I think most people, the consensus is Usyk earned the number 1 spot because pound for pound's about, if you're so good, can you beat naturally bigger fighters? And he beat an all-time great heavyweight in Tyson Fury, who was half a foot taller and 30, 40 pounds heavier. That's what pound for pound's all about. So I think everybody's got Usyk at 1, Inoue at 2, Crawford at 3. And Nakatani, he needs the opportunity to fight Inoue at 22. And there's not some fight at 26 that we just gotta see Inoue in. That, hey, Nakatani, sorry, but we gotta see this fight at featherweight. There's good fights, no doubt about it, at featherweight for Inoue. But I think if we polled the chat right now, most people would rather see Inoue stick around 22 and defend the undisputed title against Nakatani. And I would favor Inoue. I'd favor Inoue because he's got more. He does more things than Nakatani. I think he's got better head movement, even though he leaves his chin up. That's his fatal flaw. And leaving the chin up, he got timed by a left hand by Luis Neri, who dropped him. Nakatani is a better, younger southpaw with an even better left hand than Neri. Maybe he could time up Inoue with the same thing and put him on his ass and follow up and stop Inoue, unlike Neri. But I think Inoue, he's just I see more from him on tape in terms of fighting at different distances. His footwork, he has more explosive feet. He's faster than Nakatani, who's also fast, but Inoue's faster. Inoue is I think maybe the best body puncher, at least punch for punch. One punch power, he's the best body puncher in boxing. And Nakatani's got a tall frame. I think Inoue has the athleticism to navigate the distance, to get in range, to land that left hook to the body. And, Inoue's got the hand speed advantage. He's got the athleticism advantage, the experience, but Nakatani might beat him. That's why I'd want to see it. So we'll have to see. Round 1 says, yo, Skittles, what's up? What's good? What was that? My nickname going around, I think when I popped in Coach Malachi's live, they were calling me Sean Skittles. What's going on? Sean Skittles in the flesh. I got the sour Skittles right here. Inoue's a hype job. It's too late for that. He's already a Hall of Famer. He's already become undisputed in back-to-back divisions. Who does that? Crawford. Who else? Crawford and Inoue? You could talk about, he beat an old Donaire who almost beat him in the first fight. Blah, 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 blah. You could dissect anyone's resume. The point is, 4 divisions, undisputed in 2 different divisions, fighter of the year. He's already headed to Canastota, even if he lost 10 fights in a row. I said Roy because I thought of Roy Jones when he got old, losing all those fights in a row. It's too late now. The genie's out the bottle. He's already a great fighter. He's accomplished too much. So, let's see. Inoue's moved up 14 pounds. Canelo's moved up 35 pounds. Well, they're both Hall of Famers, and Canelo hasn't moved up 35 pounds. And the championship level, he's moved up 21 pounds. So he's been champion from 54 to 75. Inoue's been champion from 108 to 122. So 7-pound difference. And, that's relative to their size. That's why the weight classes have smaller jumps and lower weights, because it's proportionate to their body type. So 3 pounds is a bigger percentage for a guy who's 112 moving up than it is for a guy who's 154 moving up. They're both great fighters. My laptop just died, so I gotta pull my YouTube up to see what you guys are saying.
Working families are getting crushed by hype.
That's right, sour Skittles for life. That was me, called you Sean Skittles, and Coach was laughing out loud. But yeah, man, I'm hoping your new nickname will give you fame. P.S. You're welcome. I don't think it's going to catch on that much, but I was just acknowledging it for you. So thanks for stopping by. So, all right, chat. I think that's about all I got for tonight. If there's anything else you guys want to throw my way, and I'm going to get some rest. I got to leave for L.A. in the morning. Cover that Raiders-Rams game. Canelo started at 140. Yeah, but we're talking about championship level accomplishments. You know, him starting at 140 as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, you know, that's cool. But when he became a man, he was a 154 pounder. I know he even fought some fights at welterweight when he was beginning to make his name deeper into his stages as a prospect. But you know, once he flirted with titles and won a title, he was a junior middleweight, super welterweight. So, what's up, Tay? Round one says no dish, Sean. I'm a fan of you and follow you too. Oh, I appreciate it, man. And you know, I gotta be able to take some jokes myself. So you're good. I appreciate you stopping by. Panamaniac said had to sub. You're a cool guy and have a lot of knowledge. I appreciate that, Panamaniacs. Inoue versus Tank would be massive at 130. It is, but it's not really fair to Inoue to ask him to move up to a 6th weight class when Gervonta, you know, the one time he had to fight a marquee opponent that he would have ideally moved up for, and Ryan Garcia, he just sucked him down to 36. So it's like, nah, we're not going to ask Inoue to move up to his 6th division to fight Tank. You know, Tank, we're going to ask you to do something, like to become undisputed, to beat a guy on the pound for pound list, to unify against the undefeated champion. You know, fight Shakur, fight Tszyu, fight Ryan at a weight where he can rehydrate and be strong. You know, do something like that. Don't try to bring up Inoue, who started his career at 108, and then it'd be a big fight. It definitely would be. It'd be a fight that moves the needle. People would be excited for it, especially your casual audience. But I'm not putting the onus on Inoue to have to do anything. I don't even think Inoue should go to 26 right now. Inoue should fight Nakatani at 22. Black 59 Razor says, do I think the Niners get that W against KC? I do. And I picked the Chiefs to beat the Niners in the Super Bowl when I covered that in February here in Vegas. So I'm objective when it comes to the 49ers. And my wife makes a great point. She said, why wouldn't Mahomes take this opportunity to finish off the 49ers right now? Why let the Niners win this game at Levi's and recapture their swag, recapture their bravado and their swagger, and let them become a force again? Mahomes has a chance to kind of know your season's not going to get back on the right tracks. You're not going to be another contender. You're not going to go on the run in the second and a half season. Dagger through your heart at Levi's. You guys aren't shit, and I'm dismissing you right now. Because if the Niners win this game, the Niners have a beautiful opportunity against the Chiefs tomorrow, because at 3-3, having blown two 10-point leads against the lowly Rams and Cardinals, the Niners would have to, over the course of the second half of the season, have to prove they're for real again and not falling apart, not getting old, not getting injured, not getting selfish as individual players. They would have to go on a run, 4 or 5 game win streak, to make people believe the Niners are back and they're that juggernaut in the NFC again. But instead, they have an opportunity to get it all back in one game. If you can win this game against the defending 2-time champs, the Chiefs, you're back in business if you're the Niners. The whole NFL is going to take notice if you take the Chiefs and you recapture your bravado, your swagger. The Niners are back if they win tomorrow. And so I think they win this game because I think they're going to be really up for it. They're at home. Greenlaw is still out. They don't have Ricky Pearsall. Hufanga is out. So they could lose this game. But I have a feeling this is a ultimate back against the wall moment for the Niners. And the Niners know if we win this game, we're back. We're back to being the Niners again. And maybe I just described why Mahomes is, like my wife told me, is going to drive a dagger through the Niners' heart, because why let them win now, get their confidence, and then I got to deal with them in the Super Bowl again? How about I just take them out right here, week 7, drive that dagger through Levi's, and send them into a tailspin and finish off their Super Bowl hangover? And maybe it's the Niner fan in me hoping they win, but I keep it pretty objective. I think the Niners got their back against the walls, and I think they win this game because it's more of a must-win game than Kansas City. Kansas City lost Rashee Rice. Kansas City is due to lose to San Francisco at some point. The Niners in the Mahomes era have never beaten them. And the Chiefs have been skating by awfully close, winning by 1-score games. I think the Niners win. So there you go. KC is going to smoke the Niners. They might. It's a great opportunity for Mahomes to just end their shit right now at midseason, not let them gain steam again. I don't water down Floyd for not fighting a true welterweight. I never hear you say anything about that. Floyd never fought a true welterweight besides Berto. I wish you would have been here the other night. I put Floyd on my Mount Rushmore, and then at the same time, I questioned everything 47 and above because, although at 54, beating De La Hoya, Cotto, and Canelo, De La Hoya still had juice in the tank. He wasn't at his true prime anymore, but he was still good the night Mayweather beat him in 2007. That was a good win. Cotto had revitalized himself and would go on to knock out Martinez at 155 2 years after Floyd beat him. So Cotto was coming off the Margarito rematch win. He was feeling good. That's a good win. And then Canelo wasn't the force of nature he became at 168 pounds, but Canelo was a unified champ. He was good enough to beat Austin Trout in a mano-a-mano unification to see who was the man at 154. Floyd brought him down to 52, but I don't think that I think Canelo could have been 154 that night. It wouldn't have mattered. He was just too green and Floyd was too great. But, the right hand that Shane Mosley hit Floyd with in the second round, it does make me think, would Floyd have gotten knocked out against Mosley? Would he have lost to De La Hoya in his prime, the late 90s, early 2000s De La Hoya? The De La Hoya that Trinidad and Mosley in the first fight had to face with because, Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns, I think Leonard and Hearns would have knocked Floyd out, but they went on to knock out light heavyweights. And, Floyd is really fighting guys his own size from 135, 130, and 140. Once he got to welterweight and 154, these guys were naturally bigger men. And so you're talking about Floyd at welterweight. I'm not sold that Floyd at welterweight would have been even money with a prime, Leonard or Robinson or Hearns. And then I'm not sold that he would have beaten Shane and Oscar in their primes at 147 because if Shane at 38, pretty faded, a year and a half out of the ring against Margarito, the fact they almost knocked, I was at that fight. I was at that fight as a fan, not as media. I got the poster, I got the painting behind me. That's Floyd and Shane Mosley, and they're painting behind me. And the fact that Shane almost knocked him out in 2 rounds makes you go, what would Shane at 28 with a million right hands like that in his quiver? What would he have done then? Maybe he would have knocked Floyd out. Oscar at 34, receding hairline, little jiggly back fats at 154. What if he was peak De La Hoya? Would he have beaten Floyd? Would he have thrown too many eye-catching combinations, even if they landed or not, to make the judges ooh and on, the fans ooh and on? Would he have beaten Floyd? I'm not convinced of that. But ultimately, Floyd's resume, forget context, is as sparkling as anyone that ever fought because just the names alone, Canelo, Pacquiao, De La Hoya, Mosley, Corrales, Castillo, Gotti, Judah, on and on and on, Maidana and Guerrero and so many names. And I think pound for pound, I think it's a little, it's when you say, I'd have picked Leonard to beat Mayweather, I'd pick Robinson, I'd pick Hearns. These are naturally bigger guys who were able to knock out light heavyweights. Well, Hearns and Leonard were. Robinson almost won the light heavyweight title against Joey Maxim. He would have won it if it was a 12-round fight. Floyd can't fight light heavyweights. Those are naturally bigger guys. So pound for pound, if Floyd were 5'10", and was a natural 147, now I might pick him to beat Sugar Ray Leonard. And that's what pound for pound's all about. So I agree with you that there's question marks about how great was he truly at 147, but pound for pound, no questions. And pound for pound, I put him on the Mount Rushmore because the resume is sparkling, champion from 30 to 54. And I think the real pound for pound argument, if he's the same size as his opponent, the only guy I could really think of that, is like prime Sugar Shane at 35, prime Roberto Duran at 35. I think he schools Chavez, but maybe not. Chavez is Jose Luis Castillo learned everything he could from Julio Cesar Chavez, and Chavez was like a better version of Castillo, and Castillo might have beaten Floyd in that first fight and gave him a tough fight in the second fight. Anyways, I'm rambling now. I'm gonna get out of here. The Yankees game is in extra innings. I'm gonna go catch the Yankees game. I'll catch all you guys later. Much love and peace out. Thanks everyone for hopping in the live. That was fun. And be on the lookout for Monday. I'll be doing some shows with my guy Radio Raheem and my guy Brendan Taylor from True School Sports. So keep it locked in and peace out. Later.